The native people that inhabited what today we call the Colorow Ranch were known as the Plains Indians. They were nomadic tribes of hunters and gatherers that followed the great herds of buffalo, deer, and elk as they moved across the area. These tribes had many names: Arapaho, Kiowa, Cheyenne, Comanche, and Ute. However, this area was claimed primarily by the Ute Indian tribe. The Ute tribe resided in a large territory which is now known as Colorado, Utah, and parts of southern Wyoming. It is believed that the group settled in the major river valleys about 1300 Common Era. The Utes were organized into several groups called bands, with which they lived and hunted, and were held together by one common language. Each band had its own chief and sub-chiefs who made decisions for the group. Each band had their own territory, usually built around a river that included both mountains and plains. Age was highly respected in the Ute culture. Leaders were chosen for their bravery and skill. Women held places of respect, though they did not serve in the governing council. The natural environment provided foods and medicine for the Ute people. These plants included rice grass, sunflowers, pinyon nuts, wild currants and all sorts of berries, yampa plant or wild carrots, wild potatoes, and onions. Sometimes they traded with other tribes for corn. Insects such as grasshoppers supplied protein. The bark from the ponderosa pine and various roots served medicinally to heal wounds and bring down fevers. In addition, the Utes were excellent hunters, only pursuing what they needed for food, clothing, and shelter. Using arrows, spears, wares, and willow nets, the Utes snared small animals like rabbits, sage hens or grouse, and quail. They stalked and ambushed large animals like buffalo, antelope, bear, wild turkeys, elk, and deer. Initially, the hunters used dogs to chase their prey into the hunting pits or blinds. After the Spanish explorers arrived and introduced horses to the native people, they used horses as well to aid in the hunt. During the construction of Highway C-470 in 1985, archaeologists discovered that the Colorow Ranch area had been used for the processing of hunted animals since 3900 before Common Era. Over 1,000 artifacts were excavated at the site, including pieces of pottery, tools, spears, and many buffalo bones. It is believed that the high plateau near the Massey Draw served as an observation area to spot the herds. After the hunt, the animals were brought back to this area for processing. Plants to be used in the winter and spring were collected and dried. The animal meat was cleaned and scraped before being cut into long strips and dried high on the tops of tall trees. It was then jerked down, thus the name jerky or jerked meat. Homes were of two types, the wickiup and the teepee. The wickiup was a more permanent home, usually found near rock caves and alcoves. It was built of lodgepole pine frames covered with boughs from pine trees, then covered with mud or hides for warmth. Teepees were the Utes' mobile home. They were made of a frame of lodgepole pines covered with 6 to 10 elk hides. Then the teepee floor was lined with cedar bark, buffalo robes, or bear hides. These could be easily taken down and moved to the next location during the hunting season. Homes were kept simple since the Utes moved from place to place and needed to carry their possessions with them. They had pottery bowls which were used for cooking, storing, and for carrying water. They also wove baskets from native plants and even used things like turtle shells for bowls. Women made their clothing from the animal skins of buffalo, deer, elk, coyote, and badger. If available, the skins from beaver, otter, and muskrat were also sewn into clothing. Plant dyes, animal blood, and minerals were applied to color the hides. Men wore their hair into braids with strips of skins woven in for decoration. Some Ute Indians wore small tattoos, often found on the cheek, which represented their family or clan. Both men and women wore necklaces created from animal claws and bones, beads, stones, and juniper seeds. The Ute Indians, similar to all native peoples, have a deep respect for nature and the power nature holds. The Utes were called the Nusi, which means the people. They believed that the Great Spirit placed them on the land close to the mountains as the people to be nearest to him. Their ceremonies, including the bear dance and the sun dance, revolved around seasonal changes and requests for good hunting. Each life was valued, and no animal was killed unless needed for their band. The Utes were fortunate to live in the mountains as well as the plains. They were able to keep their interactions with the trappers and explorers at a minimum. They were helpful to those with whom they came in contact, but because of their locations, these dealings were few. That is, until the discovery of gold in Clear Creek in 1850. The word spread to the east, and by 1859, the big Colorado gold rush was on. This included many parts of what is present-day Jefferson County. The Ute tribe had to now deal with the white settlers that were invading their homeland. This was a difficult period in Ute history, as with many native tribes in the United States. The most famous Ute during this period in the Ken Colorow area was Chief Colorow. Colorow was born into the Comanche tribe, but was captured as a boy and was raised by the Ute tribe. He and his band resided among other locations in the Ken Colorow and the Red Rocks areas. One of the rock shelters he used, now known as Colorow's Cave, is located in Willowbrook. Colorow was a colorful character. Initially, he used his 6-foot height and his 275-pound size to intimidate the early settlers in the area. When more and more settlers appeared pursuing gold and land, Colorow and his band adapted. He was particularly fond of biscuits and would come to the door demanding that biscuits be baked for him. This continued until the settler ran out of flour or the band was full and moved on. Native American relations with settlers continued to deteriorate after the Meeker Massacre in 1879. Colorow tried to help settle things peacefully. However, the tribal leader Ouray prevailed. The Ute tribe lost the battle for their land, and they were sent to a reservation in southwest Colorado. Colorow resisted life on the reservation and continued to return to this area to hunt in the winter for the next 7 years. He was finally captured in a battle in 1888 and returned to a Utah reservation. There he died of pneumonia later that year. Today, the area around the Ken Colorow Ranch has honored its Ute history by naming 2 elementary schools in their honor, Ute Meadows Elementary and Colorow Elementary. These schools reside in the paths of those namesakes that came before them.